Hello everyone and welcome to the Nordic quarterly update for August 2020. We are still waiting for one of the panelists, Henrik from Norway. Hopefully he will be able to sort his connection issues and we will go live. My name is Magnus Svantegård. I represent the Nordic PropTech here, and my day job is at Stronghold Invest, where we invest in companies in the real estate market. So before we start and kick off the overall session, let's go through the panel and one by one introduce yourselves and what you do. So Tasha, would you like to start?
Hey, I'm Tasha. I'm a co-founder of PropTech Finland, and I'm doing marketing and community activities for PropTech Finland. I'm a little bit of the outsider in the real estate industry. I spent 15 years in fast-moving consumer goods and doing my PhD in economics, but otherwise I'm an active user of real estate. And I'm really happy to represent Finland here. My co-founder Mikael unfortunately will not be able to join today, but I'll share all the news about the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Nadim?
Me?
Yep.
I am Nadim Stub. I'm the managing director at PropTech Denmark. We are about a year old, and well, my job here has been very much multifold in the last month, well, since we started. And gradually I'm taking a more commercial role as we start launching all of our different programs. So a lot to share here in the last few months. So I'm looking forward to hear what the rest of you have to say.
Cool. Finally, Roger.
Hi, Roger Tofft, founder of PropTech Sweden. We started also last year, hand in hand with PropTech Denmark. We launched properly this February, and we have around 25 members right now. So it's going really strong, even in these times. We're launching a lot of projects now in autumn also. I've been in the real estate industry for around 8 years. Yeah, that's us.
Perfect. And we also have Henrik from PropTech Norway online. Good to see you, Henrik.
Good to see you all.
That was a close call.
Yeah, a very close call. So my name is Henrik. I run the Norwegian PropTech Initiative. So we try to match the Norwegian real estate industry with the PropTech companies, and we've been doing it since 2016-17 now. So it's great to widen or collab with the whole Nordic team, and I really found these discussions always very interesting to get a more Nordic perspective on what we are doing.
Exactly. So the overall theme and ambition with those webinars is to give an update both for Nordic people about what's happening in the different countries, because it's not always clear for each one of us when we're not traveling too much nowadays especially, and also to give the more global audience an insight what is happening in the Nordic, because we think that it's some really good stuff and really good companies up here. And just roughly, we had roughly 140 signups for this quarter, for this quarterly update. Roughly 70% of those were Nordic people, the rest 30% outside of the Nordic. And if we cut it by more profession, we could say that roughly 40% listening are other PropTech companies, 30% are end users, and roughly 10% investors, and I think 15-20% the rest are others, including media. So welcome to you all, wherever you are on the globe. So how is things going in those still ongoing Corona COVID-19 things? Should we start with Roger, in actually representing Sweden but sitting in London, so you have a double perspective?
Yeah, I've been in lockdown for the last 6 months, so it's a very different from the strategy that Sweden have. So I have proper two perspective on this. Those I can see that our members and the people we've been talking to in Sweden to see what's going on. And then from the UK market to see the lockdown and the effects. And of course, one of the things we see is from the real estate market, if we look into May, June, July, of course, it's been April, May has been, of course, hard for everyone because it was a proper lockdown. We didn't know what will happen for each country. We just see the effects from Italy and Spain and so on. From the Swedish market, we've seen actually proper in April, May, it was like a question where we were heading. But in June and July, we're seeing the real estate prices is actually raising. I know in July, it actually was 35% higher price on the real estate market if you compare it to 2019. So it's a really change. The COVID-19 have changed, but at the same time, it's people still out there and buying flats and houses and so on. So that's actually quite good because that is still going, the balls keep going. If you look at the UK and London, they took away the stamp duty to still keep people buying houses. And that's been so people having bidding wars right now on a house here. So that's also effects on what you can do. If we come to our community and the members, we still seeing a strong development from, of course, the COVID-19 and the PropTech market. Like everyone talks about the thing that would happen in 10 years, happening on hopefully 2-3 years now. Of course, some of us struggle with finding finance, but at the same time, we have more of our community members and more the people I'm talking to looking for raising money because they see on the other side, you see there will be a positive effect from the real estate market. And the other thing, of course, like everyone talking about and that we can read about daily is the flex office. What's the next big thing? That's in the newspaper and in the paper every day right now. So it's no one knows.
And moving to Finland, what's the overall corona effect on the society in Finland right now?
Yeah, so Finland is preparing for hard times. The government just published that we expect around 6% down in GDP, and that's why we have this Corona Recovery Fund, about 5.5 billion euros. But during the summer, it was the feeling that everybody's on vacation and everything is very quiet. I think during the last couple of weeks, we see more bigger deals happening, including, for example, public sector deals when universities are selling their properties. And there was some actually quite many situations when people cannot pay back, for example, mortgages and stuff, and property owners are trying to be flexible and deal with that issue on a case-by-case basis. According to Statistics Finland, there's some raise in rent prices and property prices, but only in Helsinki area, some Turku and Oulu cases. But all in all, rent prices are not so much up, and property selling prices are pretty much down in the country in general, except Helsinki. The hotel situation is quite unclear. For example, S Group just closed down all the Sokos hotels and nothing is happening there as it looks like, while some other hotels are still struggling and trying to keep the operation going. They decreased the night price, for example, a little bit, but not so much. In general, everybody is trying to act as a good citizen and keep the distance, and we have almost everywhere we have the sanitizers, and all their places are keeping like these tables at least 2 meters apart, so you can keep the social distancing. We close borders again. We will close borders again on Monday with some countries, and because we have some increase in corona cases here. And so far about events, they were allowed, but looks like there will be some limitation again. We had this 500 people limit until now, but starting Monday, that will not be encouraged anymore. And in public transport, we are supposed to wear a hand mask now, which was not the case during these months.
And how common is it to be back at office? Is it like 50% or 80%
basically,
or 10%?
Basically, this Monday was the first day for most people coming back from summer vacations, and it looks like people were longing for office space and being around their colleagues. Maybe 30% are back to the office. Others we still have this recommendation from the government to work from home as much as possible. So this week we had more people in the offices, but I suspect starting next Monday it will be less again. Co-working spaces are open, like for example, Epicenter in Helsinki is open. They try to keep it going and have some community activities and get people to come. But for example, Maria campus, biggest startup campus, is pretty much empty, deserted most of the time. So,
yeah. And going to Denmark, how is the Corona lockdown going down in Denmark? I think you're mute. Sorry.
Well, there's not much of a lockdown here anymore. We're sort of actually doing pretty well. Everybody's back in the office. Normal reality. I mean, we do have some things. Sometimes the infection numbers go up, and then they manage it a bit. We were supposed to initiate the final opening phase 4, last week, and the government decided to say let's just hold off of that, and then they made a few alterations. Now also wearing a face mask is something we have to do in all public transportation situations. But other than that, I mean, we're back at the office. Most people I know are back at the office, and just like in Finland, you know, we're taking the whole social distancing measures very seriously. In terms of sort of how that's affecting the market here, I think obviously, you know, like many places, this has given a lot of food for thought for businesses, and a realization that there is an opportunity here, both in terms of capitalizing on it, but also in terms of, you know, can we optimize our space in a different way? Can we allow people to work from home? And I know there are a handful of larger corporations and conglomerates that are actually testing out situations where or testing out models where they say, well, you work from home 2 or 3 times a week and so on. So definitely an interesting development in that. And I think also from a space planning point of view, that's going to, and I know the space planners are getting a lot of business at the moment. So what's interesting there is also them getting a lot of business, and actually us also being engaged in some of that dialogue, be it both in terms of, you know, can we serve some inspiration, or also in terms of what's out there, you know, what tools and resources are readily available to tap into. You know, do you need to build an entire team of developers to create something? And you know, most of the time there are actually solutions for that out there, and our job is sort of to help them, point them in the right direction. In terms of the real estate market, I mean, since last time we did this call, actually, I feel like, you know, deal flow has been going up. Things are moving ahead. I think I read somewhere a few weeks ago that they actually expected that, you know, we would accelerate to such a level here that we would probably have the same amount of deal flow that was expected for the year. Obviously, I'm interested in seeing how that holds true when we come towards the end of the month, and some of these furloughs are going to start running out, and what that impact is going to have as a result of some of the inevitable bankruptcies that are going to come as a situation of this, and how that's going to impact the economy and demand for work. So it's an interesting development, and I think for us, just, you know, just like Roger mentioned, you know, this is the PropTech moment, right? I mean, let's not make it bigger than it is, but there are so many opportunities out there as a result of problems that need to be solved or obstacles that are in the way, where PropTech solutions in one way or another have a part to play. And I think it's really much up to the founders and business developers within the smaller and larger startups to really use this as an opportunity to showcase the value that they can create at this particular time point.
Yeah, we're coming back to more specific the PropTech side of it, but let's go to Norway, and from an overall societal perspective, what's the status of the krona in Norway?
No, so it's been pretty much a lockdown since from until summer. So March or April and May after our last seminar were pretty high levels of restrictions, travel bans, and all over. And then of course the real estate market stopped as well, especially on the transaction side. So the transactions really died out. But in June, the things started getting more stabilized again. So the transaction market picked up, and a lot of the things that usually would have been doing from like March until July were now supposed to be done from June to July. So there was a lot of deals and things happening, a lot of activity in the real estate market. Overall, they have been loosening all the kind of hard restrictions over summer, and now after summer in August, as expected, the rates of people getting infected got a little higher again. So they tried to meet that with shutting down some of the things that they opened, like larger events and other things. So now it's been a little bit stricter again, but overall it's getting back to normal here in Norway. And they finally also encouraged using face masks, which is radical, because of the whole of Nordics they have not been recommending them, while the whole world has. So it's actually I read these news articles about Norway, Sweden, Denmark not recommending face masks alongside with a lot of dictatorships around the world, and all other countries like Germany, US, UK were recommending them. But now they have finally started recommending using that on the subway and other things. And of course there's been a lot of disputes in the rental market with tenants not being able to pay their money, but the government actions have been pretty good. They put a lot of money into preventing a downturn. So there will be bankruptcies coming from this, but not as much as we expected back in April.
Yeah, I could fill in on the Swedish perspective there, since I'm based in Stockholm. Actually, if overall the recommendation in Sweden hasn't changed from June to August, it's still, for example, the recommendation is to work from home until end of December for everyone who is able to do it, as they put it. But I would say that more and more people are coming back to offices for various reasons. So it's that today that in the subway, the number of people travel on the subway is 50% compared to a normal week in mid-August every other year. So it's still in some semi-lockdown, but it's more people out there nowadays in Sweden. And in the society, of course, there's a large debate on face masks going back and forth, if it's helpful or not. And I would not jump into that one. I could comment on the numbers. Roger mentioned that the prices has actually increased. So that's especially on the residential side and in Stockholm. If we look at the commercial side, I haven't looked into the price levels, but the number of transactions and the volume of commercial real estate transactions was actually really high in Q2 in Sweden. It was just 10% below a running average over the last 5 years in Q2. But there are for sure different assets that have gone down tremendously. Retail has been almost non-existing in Q2. Instead, logistics and also in a very popular asset class in Sweden nowadays is an asset type for what we call the more government use. It could be hospitals, it could be elderly care. Those kind of asset class is super popular to go in private hands nowadays, and that hasn't decreased over the last quarter for sure. And Music is actually doing the prognosis for the entire year when it comes to commercial real estate transactions in Sweden to be on a record year, the third biggest year all time. So the commercial industry in Sweden is for sure going on, but there are also lots of issues, of course, with retail landlords having problems with large shopping malls and tenants and so on. But there are schemes set in place by the government. If they work out the way it's supposed to be and covers what they're aiming for, it's too early to say, I would say. So overall, that's the key for Corona in the Nordics. So if we go back, some of you have mentioned it, but if we maybe try to deep dive a little bit more, how is the discussion going in the society and especially in the property industry about working from home, working remote, going back to the office, and slightly more long term than just this lockdown period? Are people start to, I mean, Nadim, you mentioned it quite much that some large corporations are starting to think about it, and if we could go around the table and drill down a little bit more on that one, would be for sure interesting. Should we start with Norway?
Yeah. So that this has been quite a big discussion here in Norway, actually. So because there's always been a given that we would need an office, like all the biggest companies have offices, and that's been how it's been done the last 100 years. And now Telenor, which is the largest telecom company, they went out in the media and said that everyone in Telenor, 3,000 employees, could in one office could choose to work from wherever they want. They don't have to come back to the office. And that started a big debate with all the other big companies as well, like the larger companies, on where do you really need an office. And what we are discussing here is a big debate about this, but I think there's a genuine consensus that people would not just work from home, like in their apartment day to day. Like that's not like a sustainable option. And there's also been discussions about, is this even legal? Because then it has to comply with the work law environment, because you have to have certain standards met if you're going to meet the physical requirements for a workplace. So there's a lot of these things going on, but so what they've been discussing is that will people go back to the main office, like a big office in the city, or will they have more kind of a hubs? And I think the general direction is going is that perhaps you don't need a 30,000 square meter office for a large bank or a large telecom company. You would need perhaps a smaller main office, and then people could work in hubs or work in co-working spaces and other places around, and then you could be more flexible on when you have to go into the office or not, because there's always been a given that you go to the office in the morning and go back in the evening, but now it's more, do you need to go to the office or don't you? So but this has been a big discussions, and all the real estate companies are of course very concerned with this, because it's their bread and butter. If imagine taking 20 or 30% off that market, it's not unlikely, but that will take off so much of their profits from the real estate companies. So I think that's going to be very, very interesting to follow, and I'm excited to hear how this is being discussed in the other countries there as well.
Yep. Finland.
Yeah, we have the same situation in that sense. We have quite huge discussions about the future of the office, and there was a a survey in the country that's actually more than half of the population is happy to work from home, but it's good as long as you have your kids somewhere in a daycare or school. And if you're working from home and you have kids around, that's not easy at all. So right now, for example, the guideline is that if somebody in the family has a flu or your child has a runny nose, which can be anything, not only corona, you should keep the child at home. And basically that makes it impossible to work from home for parents, or at least one of the parents. Maybe like the most possible scenario would be that people will work from home a couple of days a week, and the rest they will work from the office in some kind of shifts. That's basically the model which is liked by many people right now. It's like the best idea. Public transport, of course, experiences big financial troubles now. For example, HSL, a couple of days ago, they said that they are not making their ends meet, and they will have to cut the routes and make longer pauses between the trams. And the metro is working as usual, but trams have now a couple of minutes more between each other. So this will affect the whole infrastructure of the city, like for sure. We will see how it will go later in September, because right now, the August, we have this second spike of corona cases, so it's a little bit different. When government recommends to work from home, of course, more people will work from home than without this kind of recommendation. Yeah, but still, for real estate, of course, it's a big trouble. And I think the solution should be developed somehow. We have quite many empty office spaces already, and if even more will be empty, that would be very bad.
And going to Roger and Sweden, what do you pick up on the discussion about the future of office?
Yeah, no, like I said, I have 2 kids under 2, so I know it, and plus lockdown, no nursery, so I know the experience of craziness at home at the same time as you work. The thing is, if you look at Sweden, we have 1.2 million companies in Sweden, was 96% is less than 10 employees. You need to understand the numbers, I think, before you're talking about the home remote and remote working, what it is. And number one, I don't think we will work from home 3 days a week. I think the discussion we have in general is number one now is more you work locally. So I think that will benefit the local real estate owner and the local pubs. Instead of going commute an hour or 1.5 hours, you actually work more from locally. And that will, be, of course, put a more strategy and more, if you're a bigger company with employees all over the city, you need to understand your employees' needs much more. How is the situation for them today? Have the kids, are the younger or the older? So I think the leadership is going to be much needs to be much better to understand your employees, and from that we can work from and start talking about remote working. Number two, of course, is the health issue. What we can see now, I mean, Henrik, you sit on a nice chair at your office. I'm sitting on a little thing at home. And that we can see effects. And this is just a couple of months now. But if this will go on and on and on, I think we will have a health issue for everyone who's working too much from home. So this is not something we need to discuss also. And also what we can see is the depression who's coming now more and more, because the more people working from home, you don't come out, you don't see your friends and colleagues and so on. So we have to be aware that remote working is like, what is it for the human and for the people. I think, of course, when we're looking at remote work also, now is also be more flexible, but that means that we need to start discussing about the sustainability. Just to change a big office to a smaller office, it's still like throwing away furniture, throwing away walls and so on. So I think that's where the PropTech and ConTech can come in with a good solution. And I know White Architect in Sweden have looked into this and have launched a model. I'm not expert on that, but where you can actually look at your office and see what kind of stuff can you actually recycle. So I think if we're now starting to change their office and more with the remote working thinking, we need to also think about the sustainability. So this is something we discuss in our community, and I think this is something we need to discuss even more. So health, leadership, and sustainability. I think that's the key for the future.
Any comment on that, Nadim? More than you started off with?
No, I think everybody came in on a few interesting points. I think one of the things that I found to be interesting is, there's been a lot of focus on a lot of the Western or the American companies, especially the tech companies, going on and say, oh, we're going to offer a work from home experience in its entirety. It's totally up to you, which I think, I think the intention is great, because it's about flexibility, and it's about trusting your employees to do what they need to do where they are. However, some of the surveys that I've been seeing, flaunting around LinkedIn and online elsewhere, I think there's something interesting there, and I find that the Nordic countries actually, there is less of an inclination to actually want to work from home. It's not that I'm saying they don't want to or that they don't need to. I'm just saying I think it could be interesting to see if it's because that the workplace environment in the Nordics is just of a fundamental higher standard than it is many other places in the world. And I think that's something that, the industry needs to take into account. I think it's also something that will be more of a competitive parameter going forward. I think Roger's point on saying, well, 1.2 million businesses, a lot of them are very small. Maybe there's a point in that. If you are 10 people in an organization, is it going to change the way you work? Maybe not. But I don't think that we can just make a general decision on that. I think it's going to have more on an effect in terms of, are you a bank and do you have 30,000 people employed under you, and there's a lot of money to be saved by having a much more flexible environment. But I think that we were always going to go in that direction. The coronavirus has just accelerated their thinking on it, and it's given them something, some sort of data that they can look at and say, well, this is actually how it is. It's a very difficult experiment to do if there wasn't a reason to do it. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this takes us about a year from now.
Yeah, and I think, it's a big debate in Sweden. There's a lot of people saying and pushing for the need for the office, and quite often property companies, obviously, to defend their value in the whole process. But it's also quite a few discussing, will there be more satellite hubs? Will these be the upside, maybe for the countryside to not have everyone moving into the cities? But I think we also need in the Nordics, we need to be aware that what we see as a tough commute is nothing if you compare to London or New York or Paris or the big cities. But even in Stockholm, I would say that the average commute is like 45 minutes in one direction. So it adds up quite a lot, but it's nothing compared to London or the really big capitals where you can easily spend an hour or 2 hours in each direction. Of course, that puts a lot of big difference if you go into the office or not. But I also think, in line with Roger, I think it's sometimes too much discussion about the office versus the home. I think there is something between there, a local hub, co-working place, or something like that. I think that's and actually before Corona, one large property company in Sweden were actually starting doing that in Stockholm to build a larger office in the southern part of Stockholm. So not all people 5 days a week needed to go to normally the tech headquarters in the northern part of Stockholm. So I can see this trend just being accelerated. but it's obviously a lot of questions. And we actually have one question here from Menelemmers from Holland about the fact that there is a lot of information and insights exchanged in the office. And in order to facilitate this during work from home, you have to organize the sharing information and insights. And do we think that inequality will increase or decrease in the future if we continue to work in remote? Any input on those questions? How do you?
Well, we're moving from an industrial society to a digital society and information society. So I think, of course, now we are in the peak of how shall we, I mean, you have all these tools, I mean, Microsoft, Slack, all these tools we need to learn now. And of course, that's the next thing for the workforce. Which system do we use to have the best? But at the same time, I think, as his question is it's not 5 days a week. We still need to see each other. I think there were the team and to see each other and have that information, sharing information, get inspiration from colleagues. I think it's extremely important still to use that. I think more, but as Nadim, and it's more about your assignment for the hour or for the day. Do you need to concentrate? What are you doing? And I think that's where the data and understanding of how do we work. I think there's so many questions to answers to that question. How does our normal day look like? And how do we share information?
If I can add, from my personal experience, I was working in quite big offices with close to 1,000 people, and most of the time, if you come there 5 days a week, the colleagues are just a distraction. Of course, there are some ideas happening and good things coming from closer interactions with people, but most of the time you're just struggling to find the corner where nobody can find you and you can do your work. I have another experience. I have a colleague, we are working most of the time online, and before the lockdown, we were meeting once a week for the joint conversation with the head office in US. That was really productive, half an hour, 40 minutes we had together before the call. We had lots of ideas. Right now we're trying to compensate for that using the Zoom calls. Before the main call, we have our small Zoom call. I can say it feels a little bit different. It's less creative process. It's more like, okay, there are these tasks and I have to do this and you have to do that. So maybe this physical interaction, we're still social beings. We're made to interact with other people and get closer physically to them. So maybe that's the component which we need to take into account when we decide that everybody works remotely and we have this distance office, distance work mode. I think that will not work sustainably in the long term.
Yeah, my input to the question how to share information, I was always been quite surprised how much information is actually just exchanged orally at offices, because it's not that everyone is at the office every time anyway. So there's so much information that it's not going out to everyone, even if we compare to a normal office way before Corona. So I think there is for sure an upside in being more digital anyway. So it's something people have to learn. I think it's not efficient if you're a large organization just to rely on this chit chat between the desks to get out of the information. So I think there's a need for change in processes and how people work. And that will be easier for some people and not as easy for other people.
Just to add on that, I remember long before for all this, I think Yahoo did this survey back in 2013 with because they in the early 2010s they said that all employees could work from home, and what happened with in Yahoo at the time was that the the creativity and the new ideas and everything just dried up, and there was a lot of debate internally, according to the news articles I read, about why this happened. And they found out that a lot of the interactions, as you said, was being done in the hallways, all the creative processes. So a lot of people got their things done, and then they were done. But when they're at the office, a lot of other things come out as well. So and that's like the old process, and I think there's a lot of new ways, as you said, to mediate these processes. But yeah, a lot of these discussions you have in the hallways are also could be helpful for the organization. Or there's two aspects to it, because I think you can do your job more efficiently if you're at home, and then you can spend more time doing other things. But for the company, if you do your job and then you're at the office and then you spend your creative energy with them and then you go back to work, perhaps it's better for the company, even though you spend your time there. But it was interesting, and Yahoo made everyone go back to the office, and according to them, or their KPIs on this, said that things got better after that. I don't know how Yahoo is doing at the moment, but it was quite interesting, because this was way before the PropTech hype and Corona, so it's worth reading up.
Yeah. But on the same hand, there are also companies that are fully remote that are for sure very, very creative and productive. So I also think it's maybe harder to change that for people used to work at the office to not be working at the office full time. Yeah. It's much easier if you start a new company or employ a totally new team where it's outlined from the very beginning that you're looking for people working remotely. I think that's a big difference, because I think it's always the mindset if they want it to work or not.
Yeah, exactly.
So drilling more in detail about PropTech and the news and deals you've seen, or if you've seen anyone's during Q2 in your home markets. Should we start with Denmark? On mute.
The deals within PropTech or real estate?
Yeah, PropTech.
Well, actually, there's not. We've had a summer holiday here, so things have been a little bit quiet. That being said, I think one of the things that we've that is coming up. I know of a few deals that are about to happen and are just at the closing stages, and I think the Danish Growth Fund has actually committed to do a 1 to 3. So any private investment or loan issued, they will add another 300% in loan on top, as a loan on top. So it's in debt. And my clear understanding of everything that's going on within the PropTech space is some of the funding that is looking to be closed is that is actually a lot of what's holding it up. It's the application processes to get all of that in. So I sort of have this feeling that over the next few months, we're going to see quite a lot of PropTech funding come up. I'm not thinking we're talking in the 10, 20, 30 million krona level, but I think we're at the seed stage for the most majority of it. So that's positive development.
Yep. And Sweden, have you seen any rounds or fundings during Q2?
Well, we have Vio have raised some money. I know we have a couple of in the community who's on the board to raise money. So, are you an investor? Please contact me, and I will set you up with these companies. We have, I think, 4 or 5 of our community members who's raising money now. But I think that's the one who's raised money. And then I know, of course, you guys, Magnus, with Stronghold, you started this, is it Buildroyd, right?
Exactly.
Buildroyd, and they started to invest in Netmore, who is one of our community member. I'm really looking forward to see that journey. I think it's a really exciting company. PropTech Sweden and Netmore have an event in November together, so we're really looking forward to that also. So that's the raising money. Then we, of course, seen a lot of deals. if we're talking about deals, we have Flowscape, who's actually doing, when you're going back to the office, your sensors, you can see where people are and how many at the office and so on. They've done some big business in Norway, and I think 3 or 4 big business in the UK actually, big clients. So really good job for them. And then we can see some of our others. We have helped some of our community members to take a retail actually with access system. So 120 retail shops with access system. So that was really good, also really good collaboration. So that's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, very overall comment on our investment. So Stronghold, we have done our biggest PropTech investment for 20 years during Q2 and in the height of Corona. So that was an investment in the very underlying networks to connect the building. So connected building is the overall theme. And we're doing that under the umbrella name Buildroid. And Netmore, as mentioned, is the first investment through that new vehicle. So we're really trying to make slightly more sense about how to connect the building and the process of doing it and so on, because there's so many sensors nowadays and different connections in the building that it's landlords start to ask about a more common way to tie everything together. So that's another one. Yeah, and Norway, how is it doing? The PropTech scene in Norway? You have started co-living there.
Yeah. So co-living is finally starting up here. A few providers opening up now after summer. So bad timing with the whole Corona situation for them, but still, if they follow the rules and all of that, I think this will go quite well. It's an interesting product to take the whole co-working model and use that for residential. And there's a lot of interest in that. So both, like, some companies are starting it up now. They are pure co-living companies called Evergreen and one other called Podium. But the landlords are also looking into this model to make more efficient use of their space. Because if you see what some of these apartments, they have I was there at the co-living space, and you could rent out an apartment with 10 rooms for 10,000 kroners each room. I would say, like, you would pay 1,000 pounds almost for a month for a room, and then you have 10 rooms. So that's obviously more than a landlord could get for renting it out in the market in general. So 10,000 pounds a month for an apartment. So I think that's could be a good model. Also see that Ubos, the biggest landlord here, they're doing a co-lab. So they call it a living lab, where they are renting out or selling apartments, and they say that you can get a big discount or rent relief if we could measure what you're doing in the building. And then people are living in the living lab, but then they could test out all these new services and see what works and what is not working. So that's pretty cool. Really interesting to see what's coming out of that. The Norwegian lock system, Unlock, they are doing digital locks, easy model to install, and then you have your lock, your key on your phone. And they raised a lot of money during COVID, actually, so that's interesting. And lastly, I'm PropTech Norway. We're part of a bigger project with Construction City, it's called, in Norway, and with a lot of the largest landlords here. And the project, which is supported by the Norwegian SINTEF, which is the research official research department for the government, they are looking into how we could share data between landlords, right? So finding out, like, what's the apples for apples, and then how can we share that? So a lot of the things I learned from my time in WeWork, for example, was the extreme focus they had on data. That's one, like, under communicated side of it, I would say. But if the landlords are going looking at their data they have in their buildings and sharing it with the other landlords, they can build a data set that's quite powerful as well. If they know how many chairs you should have in a hallway, or which colors you should paint something, or where to order some kind of materials. So it's going to be very interesting to see what comes out of that. It's just started up, but it's going to be a big project. So.
Is that run by the construction companies or by the more established large property investors?
More the large property investors, but it's something called Construction City, which is more of a largest building project in Oslo, in a area that's not perfectly utilized at the moment, but all the large construction companies are moving to that area, and so they are collaborating with some of the real estate owners owning space there. So they have made this cluster, and out of that they are obliged to do research, and this is one of the big research projects they are starting up. So it's going to be interesting. And you also see a move, actually, it's probably pretty far off for the American listeners here, but Amazon, they are coming to Norway and Sweden and establishing themselves now. Like, we, of course, can be using it for years. I've been doing that for a long time, but they are getting offices and doing services here. So it could also have an effect on retail and that kind of delivery market. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big news the last week, mainly big news in tech, I would say, in the tech society, but it's also big comment in the property industry, of course, because it will potentially drive e-commerce even harder, which could have an even bigger price paid on the retail class as an asset class. But they are taking take a hit already, so I'm not sure if it will change that much. So going to Finland, I know at least one big deal that has gone on in Finland.
Yeah, that deal I think Antti will tell himself about. Our member TRACTR raised from Lifeline Ventures almost 2 million, and that's like the biggest news on our market for now. There were some smaller deals, like for example, Helen Ventures invested in Gradient, and another member, Chaos, they received money from Business Finland for research. But summer was quite quiet, and we expect more news in the autumn because all the talks normally take some time, and we know that some conversations are still ongoing. And on the revenue side, we hear about lots of pivoting and participating in different projects, and the country gives this opportunity. Like, for example, VTT and Tampere University, they just started this project called Build for Klima, Build for its number and Klima, and they're trying to bring together the companies which can provide solutions to decrease or control carbon dioxide emissions from the building. So all new materials, all new things to monitor that. For startups, it was easier to continue working with their current clients or the clients they started approaching long before, and kept talking to them. Like, for example, Assetia, they started working with Misma Tampuri, but I guess this conversation was going for some time. Some of our guys are going international, even though they didn't expect that, as I understood. Like, Chaos started working in the Norwegian market all of a sudden, and another member from Estonia, RA Tech, they actually got some interest in France and Sweden, and these guys found them themselves. So it looks like the potential clients are actively searching for innovation solution and trying to reach out to the startups and get in touch and ask for demo and everything. So that's a positive thing. We think that autumn will be much more fruitful in terms of the news, and we'll be happy to share some.
Yep, and mentioned there was TRACTR, and Antti, the co-founder and CEO, will hopefully join in a few minutes here. He's running between meetings and being a very busy man. So hopefully we'll have him online and he can tell his story for everyone. It's a very interesting one, and for sure going very global directly, not just in Finland or in the Nordics. On more sadder news, have you seen any PropTech companies actually closing down permanently? I mean, some areas of PropTech is doing very well, and however, others are not as successful. You don't need to mention, but more in what areas, or
at least one of our members got bankrupt officially. Everything is closed by now. I know around maybe 10 cases from a personal network when people had to close down the company and file the bankruptcy papers. So yeah, it's not going that well for some solutions, and most of them are quite they're not based on like basic needs. They're a little bit of more premium level of needs, and this is the first thing you cut out when difficult time starts. So it's like good to have, but not necessary thing. And I think there will be more of these cases later on.
Yep. And Denmark, have you seen anything on that side among your members?
Actually, no. I think to my understanding, they're doing well. I think it's been difficult for everyone, but it feels like that they've gotten well through it. To my knowledge, we haven't heard of any bankruptcies. Actually, I'll go so far as to say that my clear feeling is, although we have all the funding side, is that I sense that there is a ramping up now on the other side. So that's positive, and I also have to say, I think taking the Nordic, putting on my Nordic hat here, I'm getting quite a lot of reach out from Swedish, Finnish, Norwegian, and also Baltic startups looking to enter into Denmark and into Copenhagen. So it feels like things are going well.
And Sweden, Roger?
Well, we haven't lost any members, but I think the biggest case in Sweden who actually got bankrupt is Jansi. With the smart sensors. I mean, they've been around the business for a long time, but they couldn't really survive now. So, well, I heard different kind of stories, and I can't the whole like I said, I don't know the whole story about it, but yeah. So that's what's actually little strange, or some people maybe expected it, some didn't. But just about the sensors, because now I thought, well, sensors is a market going up. So yeah, but that's the biggest news in the negative way that what I heard about. I haven't heard any more negative from our prop tech companies.
No, that's one is the most officially known. There are of course sectors and companies that are having a hard time, especially if you needed to raise capital in Q2. That was quite tough to understate it. Whereas others are doing tremendously much better. And in Norway, any
not at the
going
moment.
cold totally?
Not totally. I think some of the smaller startups that really don't have to file for bankruptcy because they have just a few employees, but they are just keeping the company, but they're not doing any business. So I think they are struggling a lot, like the smaller without a big client base. I think some of the companies doing like platform technology, like apps to use on a construction site, all of those things are doing tremendously well. While typically like a VR company based, like where you need to buy hardware and software and it's like a little higher end product, not like the usual communication tool, but like some cool add-on for your building project. I think those are struggling more, as Tasha said also. So, but I don't see any bankruptcies at the moment, but I think that's because some of the larger ones have long-term clients that are still giving them business, and some of the smaller ones are so just are using the government support to now the Corona support to stay afloat, paying the wages, not doing any business, and then they don't have to bankrupt the company, and then they'll see after if their business is picking up or they will do a shutdown.
Yep. makes a lot of sense. So before we have Antti online, maybe we should go around the table and you can say more specifically what you're doing in your each association per country. So what events or what programs or what's up for the autumn. So let's start with Denmark. No, I think we take Denmark last. You have the most. You're so active. So
Okay,
maybe let's start with Norway. Start with Norway.
Yeah, this has actually been a pretty good time for PropTech Norway in that sense. Like every year we had these huge events. Like some of you have of course been there, and with all the real estate companies and everyone gathered with hundreds of people. And this year, of course, I think we made a smart decision back in April, May, just postponing that or doing that later. And I think now also it will be hard to do a huge event and sell tickets and all of that. So I think that's been a smart move. But we have also looked at the feedback from some of our the member companies and the sponsors, and that's always been that they don't really need a logo on a big event. Like the most important thing for them is to have the connections and set that up, and that's what we are actually doing now. So we are setting up smaller gatherings for the very important real estate investors and then the top PropTech companies and matching them and doing all these other intros and international speakers or international people coming to Norway. We can give them good intros, and we're setting up more higher value events, and then we're doing more webinars and breakfast events for the broader public. But we have changed quite a lot of the model of how we're doing it. We centered everything around a big event, and then we had add-ons, and now it's the different other way around. Like we do smaller things, we work more with making connections, and perhaps we'll have a big event again. Who knows? Not this year, but it's not going to be centered around that anymore. It's going to be the other way around.
Yep. And Finland, Tasha?
Yeah, we still have one event coming, and even though that will be a different format, TRACTR still will happen. Normally it was side event to Slush, and the biggest side event to Slush basically. We were thinking what to do, and it was pretty clear already in spring that most probably physical event with more than 1,000 people will not be allowed. And we had 1,000 people last year, so we decided to go online. And since Slush is not having anything on these dates, but we have already set the dates, we will do this for 2 days now, 18th and 19th of November. We will use the platform which will allow to do the networking and face-to-face one-on-one meetings still, while we will have professional MC doing the main stage program, as it always was the case at TRACTR.
Is that the umbrella software you're using?
We didn't make a decision yet. We are looking at several alternatives and actually trying to find the best one, which allows good connection between these people who are doing one-on-one meetings.
Anyone looking for event tech should really look at Brella.io. I think it was we're looking at them as well. Yeah, that's perfect for networking, and yeah, we will see. We will make this decision later in August. Also, we started cooperation with Platform of Trust, and we are talking now about series of small webinars around certain topics, which we will announce later on. And of course, we cooperate with global events and looking at what other guys are doing, trying to get our community there to learn from others. And one thing which I wanted to ask everybody to help us with, especially our Nordic colleagues, we decided to make a survey about go-to-market challenges for our startups in the Nordics. And we kindly ask you to share that with your community as well, because I think we can tackle some of these problems much better if we will understand from different countries what's the main problem and why they cannot move forward with some of their projects. So I'll share the links and everything in the email later on, and we'll be happy to answer on the questions about that one. That's it from us. Roger, what is happening in PropTech Sweden?
Well, we're having a lot of things going on this autumn. First of all, we had a eGain, one of our members, went the whole way to European PropTech Awards. So that's, I think that's 15 or 16 September down in Paris. So congratulations to them. We will support them and push them to actually win the whole thing. Next week we'll have a webinar from Digicity with Chelsea and Tom from US, talking about smart societies, and we're also talking about homelessness. How can PropTech actually help homelessness in smart cities? We will have event every month. The last week every month we will have our webinars. We have also soft launched our procurement tool. So a real estate company and construction company can contact us, and we help them with case studies, workshops and think tanks. We launched it for 2 companies this before summer, and it went really, really good. A company had a showcase on 4 weeks from the question to the end to decide which company they will move forward with. Took 4 weeks. So it was an amazing thing to do. We will keep pushing that. We will have some awards in January 2020. We will come out with more information about that. And I know with you, Magnus, you have your Business Arena BA awards is it December?
Exactly. So Business Arena has been the biggest for many years, the biggest commercial real estate fair in Sweden. It's been a 2-day full event with close to 8,000 attendees. And this year they postponed the event to December, and hopefully we'll be able to run it then. And as part of that, there will be a Business Arena Tech Award in 3 categories, unfortunately for Swedish PropTech companies, but yeah, it's still worth mention. There is also two categories for innovative property owner or investor, and also for the innovation between in state and municipality field. So that will be a strong Swedish focus on that one. But it's super interesting, because that's where the end customers are. All the C-levels are attending this event for sure.
So we're looking forward to that. And then we're working with right now with Swedish Chamber of Business in UK. So we will have a London boot camp. So around 10 companies will get together and meet investors and companies, customers in London together with me. So especially invited that we will take out. So that's something we're really looking forward to also. And then, of course, we will support Tasha and the Finnish with the Record Tech and pushing that, and help the rest of the Nordic countries to push their events. So it's a lot of things, even more, but yeah, follow our newsletter and you will see everything.
Yeah, before we let Antti have the word and explain what he's doing, let's see what Denmark is doing. That is a lot, Nadim. You've been very active.
Yeah, well, there is a lot. I mean, I think there's also a lot because we have an entire Nordic and European ecosystem that's very much engaged, and luckily enough, we have the resources that allow us to engage as much as possible and as broadly as possible. So fortunate for that. I mean, in our own little pen, the most exciting news is we are launching our co-working space. Our lab will be launched next week. I can't tell you much more. But that's really great. It's starting out small, but scalable, somewhere around the 30 to 50 seat mark. And well, and the great thing about it is, based on the signups, we're way over capacity already. So let's hope that we can go from sign up to signature. So that's obviously it's a big thing for us, because it's going to be the manifestation of all of our physical activities, as well as somewhere where we are clearly taking an approach of making the industry a little bit more, or inviting the industry to become more innovative and access innovation and entrepreneurship in a different way that they're used to. And then we have our events here and there in the same way that they have in Sweden and Finland, and we don't have a Recotech event in Denmark just yet. Might come one day, but But we do, I would say we have about 2 events a month, different themes. We just had one for the Danish business angel community a few weeks ago, which went really, really well. And then we have our annual meeting coming up October, November, which, well, I guess as Tasha can recognize, we're still trying to figure out how we're going to do that. I think we've reached this point here. This goes for both me, my team, the board, the industry. I want to minimize the use of webinars. I know the irony of saying that, being on one, but I think a lot can relate to that feeling that meeting in person and doing something together is important. So let's see how we can do that, and otherwise, we just try to kick on and stimulate, activate, support our network, our community as widely, broadly as possible. And one of the things that we'll be focusing on over the next 6 to 12 months is actually going in and supporting the industry or industry players in specific projects. And helping them, get the ball rolling. So it's exciting times.
Yeah, great news. I mean, you're doing tremendously well in Denmark. There's no question about it. So we have another 16 minutes, and I'm more than happy to see Antti Tuomela online. Welcome.
Hey, thank you.
So Antti,
nice
Tasha,
to be here.
Good to have you here. So Tasha mentioned that you were one of the ones most talked about races in Q2 in Finland. So take it away. Who are you and what is TRACTR?
Hey, thank you, Magnus. My name is Antti Tuomela, and kind of like we are a new startup company, but of course we have a long history. We have been, in a way, working with this concept, well, part of us since 2010, but I personally got involved in 2015 when I was the CEO of Aalto University Properties, and we just kind of like found out the amazing thing about real estate and how to actually utilize in a new way the real estate and the properties. And so we have a company, tech company, and we are building a platform and various services. We have a simulator tool for large occupiers to plan how to plan their corporate real estate solutions, how to manage it. And then, of course, like most of the companies, we have mobile application for the end users. So what we are aiming to do is kind of like end-to-end service to large occupiers to adjust into this, especially during these coronavirus times, into new environment where people can work from anywhere in the city. Because we believe that this will last. People will want to continue to work from homes and elsewhere and so on. So I think that the outcome of this coronavirus is that people don't want to be stuck in traffic jams and so on. So we help the companies to find workplaces all over the city and so on.
Exactly. So correct me if I'm wrong here, but the way I view it is that you're connecting different empty spaces. It could be co-working spaces or
yes,
empty spaces in other surroundings, and especially around business parks and universities.
University campuses, and that's kind of like where that is where we come from, and university campus. And 2015, I was in charge of the real estate investment program at Aalto University, and the university was spending 500 million euros into the university campus, but the utilization rate during office hours was 24%. So I had a little identity crisis, and I went to the president and said that, why are we actually building all these buildings? Because somebody else could use them. And that's kind of like the origin of the company.
Yeah, interesting story. So you raised your first round in Q2, and how was that?
To be honest, we got a bit lucky. So in a way, just my co-founder, colleague, and Eetu and I were in Dubai on a business trip, and then kind of like the whole world in Europe shut down. And of course, we had been talking with few investors, and then one of the investors was really interested in the team and what we were doing, and then that's how we got Lifeline Ventures. And they were, to be honest, gentlemen enough to kind of like, they proposed something, and we were able to actually close that deal.
And it could be worth mentioning that Lifeline Ventures is almost like a founder's fund, if I understand it correctly. It's very vetted entrepreneurs that have been lucky selling their company, so they for sure knew your position, so to say, and where it will go. So yeah, what has happened in the last couple of months? So what projects are you in? Are you live in Finland or also outside of Finland or the Nordics?
The challenge has been, we have had, of course, like most of the startups, several challenges, but we were actually, after the week when the Finland was shut down and everybody was kind of like stuck inside, we had a plan to actually open and launch the service in Helsinki metropolitan area. And after that we have just postponed it because of the coronavirus and so on. But of course, as a startup company, we were able to, that's a good thing when you're a startup company, you can actually do all sorts of stuff and you don't have that much overhead and the kind of like the existing clients and so on. So we started working on and talking with people that, oh, now the world is changing, and how can we actually serve with this model that actually serves the new future, the new normal, what we see when it comes to like working and distributed working, because we had the technology, existing technology that could support the kind of like the coronavirus period and post-coronavirus period. And of course we had, we are pretty well connected all over the world. So we started talking with our partners and companies all over the world. And so far it has been very successful. So we're working with, for example, Canadian government and just opening a project together with Microsoft and Nike in Shanghai. And it has been interesting because we have to do everything desktop from Finland. Nobody cannot travel. And for us, it has been very good when it comes to like meeting the clients, because like before coronavirus, there was a challenge that, okay, for example, somebody in university sector says that next summer you're welcome to visit us. But then of course, nobody can travel. So here we are. So we have been able to actually get these slots from very top executives for 30 minutes just to kind of like pitch what we're doing, and have got some really interested, very good interest in all over the world. So for us, it has been quite good and working. Of course, it means long hours working, like you have to work with Asia during morning, and then California, where we have really active partners, and that's kind of like the worst when it comes to time zones and so on.
Yeah. So in a way, the way that it's restricted with travel is actually an upside too, because you can push those meetings so much more into the agenda and actually take a few very quick ones instead of being on a plane and plan a trip.
Yeah. 12 travel for 12 hours to just have a 1 hour meeting, and then you're kicked out. But of course it's different. And then the good thing about this, I think that when it comes to meetings, and then when a client is interested, they are willing to have a separate meeting. Okay, after 2 weeks, we will have a second meeting and so on. So you don't have to travel back and forth.
Yeah. And how is it to be a PropTech startup from the Nordics or Finland in specific, and talking to companies or the state of Canada and US and so? Is it pros and cons?
Of course, I think that we have our weird names, and just like thank you for putting me at Tuomela. That's kind of like it should be. There are cultural differences, but of course, I think the most kind of like valid thing is to have your kind of like partners who are very well connected into, who know people and know people. Because what I have seen on a personal level, people are nowadays contacting me, even though I'm a startup entrepreneur, just like selling web services all over the world, and just like, can I have 15 minutes of your time? So of course, important thing is that to have somebody who actually is trustworthy to recommend you that you should check this out. These guys are doing something really different. And to have these options, and then we need some like door openers like everywhere in the world.
So if you are another PropTech company, what's your tip on how to be in that position for anyone else?
During coronavirus or
in general?
I think that what we have seen is just like try to pick up the right partners. That's kind of like the thing, and just like don't be desperate and try to look for the ones that actually know the people that can decide about things. And unfortunately, in many cultures, it's a very top-down world, and you need to know there's somebody like the CEO or the former CEO. And then they say the rest of the company, I think this is a great idea, and just like you should take a look at this. Yeah. And of course, when it comes to messaging and kind of like contacting people, sending messages to people, that's a tricky thing, because people get so much information, and try to be a little bit different than the others.
And how do you think that will change if Corona goes away and the travel for lockdown goes away? Would you start travel like before in the original plan, or?
Because I have got some feedback from, for example, some like colleagues and friends from, for example, MIT that have been traveling all over the world, and they kind of like this. I think that this will continue. People will not travel that much anymore, and just it's so much more convenient to, even though if you have to kind of like put your wake up call like in the middle of the night, it's easier than traveling on the kind of like the other side of the world and to have like 1 hour meeting. So that will definitely change. But of course, when it comes to workplaces, there will be very big changes. I think that after in Finland, in Sweden, we will be stuck on probably until the rest of the year working like this. People will get used to like working from home and just like getting out of these traffic jams and just like having so much like more spare time and so on. So
and since you are meeting with so many large occupiers, large corporations, what are they saying, or what are they planning?
I think that it depends on the kind of like client. That the biggest ones and the most ready ones for the change are those ones that listen to their employees. They have a huge talent pool, for example, in Silicon Valley, and their employees actually decide where they live and so on. And it's been very interesting that, for example, what Facebook and Google has done, it's just like kind of like selling that people can work from homes like rest of their lives. Of course, they have probably the best people in the world. So I think that many of the HR people, and I don't think that real estate has got this much attention anywhere in the history than before this, because now it's really like a corporate issue. HR, CEOs, CFOs, and everybody's talking about the real estate and the workplace issues at the moment. So I think that this will be a kind of like HR issue in the future. What companies, how do they recruit? And the employees will actually have more power to say that this is the way I work. I'm kind of like used to this. I want to work. And for the employers, it has to be like that. They will have to serve the employees and get the locations, and wherever they want to work, get those locations for them.
Yeah, it's an interesting future for sure. Well, yeah. Thank you so much, Antti, Tuomela, for joining the call and telling your story, and wish you all the good luck to
Yeah, we definitely need that, but like everybody
take
of us
over the
needs
world.
that. Thank
Starting
you.
in Helsinki.
Yes.
And to everyone else on the panel, thank you so much for today. And everyone else on the call calling in, hopefully you found this quarterly event as good as the last one, and you know a little bit more about what's happening in the Nordics. And no set plans yet, but we'll see you in 3 months for another webinar, and keep in touch.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good weekend, everyone. Bye.
Good weekend.